Hey guys, in this episode of the Man Cave, I am going to be performing a brake flush and changing the brake fluid on my old pickup. Now, like I said in the previous video, out of sight, out of mind, we don't usually think of our brakes until we feel something different about them. Baka medyo mahina na ang kagat ng preno natin o meron tayong nararamdaman na tinatawag na spongy feeling at that pedal. Now, this could be down to a number of different reasons. Like I said before, two of the most likely culprits are your brake pads, baka luma na yan and they need to be changed out and replaced. Or it could be your brake fluid. Now, brake fluid needs to be replaced every 2 or 3 years or as soon as you see some discoloration or cloudiness. Ang brake fluid natin, tawag natin dyan hydroscopic, which means that, well, sumisip-sip siya ng tubig from the air. It actually absorbs moisture or water from the air, and over time, dumadami ang tubig sa atin na nakahalo sa ating brake fluid. Now, why is this a bad thing? When your brakes get hot from use, well, water boils at a much lower temperature than your brake fluid, and it will form vapor, and that vapor is basically air in your brake lines, and that is what gives you that spongy feeling at the pedal. The solution, very simple guys, just change out your brake fluid. Now, today I'll show you two different methods. One is using a vacuum bleeder. Guys, get one if you can. It makes the job so much easier. I got mine online. It's a really big help, especially for mechanics who like to do their own maintenance at home. Ngayon, kung wala naman kayong vacuum bleeder, well, I'll show you a manual method na napakadali rin naman. So the car is out in the garage. Let's get to work. Alright, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to locate your master cylinder. It's usually right here on the driver's side. Now, before you open that, give it a good wipe. Punasan nyo yan. You don't want any of this dirt and contaminants to go into your brake master cylinder reservoir when you open that up. So just give it a good wipe before you open that. Alright, next I'm going to use an empty bottle, and what I have is an old syringe with a length of tubing, and I'm going to siphon out the old brake fluid. I'm going to take as much of it out without actually emptying it. So I'm going to leave a little bit of the brake fluid or the old brake fluid in there. It's important that you don't let the reservoir run dry, otherwise you'll get air in the system. So take out as much as you can without actually fully emptying it. Alright, now that stuff is looking pretty old and dirty, so it's about time that we really flush these brakes. I don't need to remind you guys, the brake fluid is very caustic towards metal and paint, so keep it off your paint. If you drip any of the brake fluid on any of the metal parts, make sure you wash that off or rinse it off. Give it a good wipe. Just make sure that you don't get this, most importantly, on your paint. Now I'm going to take this old brake fluid, empty it into my container.
Refill your reservoir with fresh brake fluid. Now, feel free to top it off above the maximum level. Consider this as sacrificial brake fluid, as you will actually be drawing this through the system to push out the old dirty fluid.
Alright, with the wheel off, you now have easy access to the bleed nipple, which is behind the drum brake here. Now, with an old pickup like this, you would start with the rear wheels first, the one with the longest line for the master cylinder. In this case, it's the rear passenger side, followed by the rear driver side. Next, you would do the front passenger side. Then lastly, you would bleed the driver front. Now, the reason for this is hinahanap mo yung pinakamahabang linya from the master cylinder to the brakes. Okay, and you wanna bleed those lines first. So, ang unahin natin is the rear passenger side. Alright guys, this is your bleed nipple right over here. It's an 8mm. You'll find that it has a little rubber cover on the end. Don't lose that. You'll want to put that back on. Now I'm putting on my wrench first. Like I said, it's an 8mm, and that's followed by the vacuum hose that I have. Now you want a nice airtight seal on here, so use whatever tube you need to get a good airtight seal on that nipple. Alright, I'm pulling my wrench through, and I'm going to crack that open just a bit, and I'm going to start pulling a vacuum with our vacuum bleeder. There you go. Now you see all the old stuff coming out. Dark, it's black. Now we're gonna keep going until we see clear fluid coming through there.
Once you see a steady stream of clear, bubble-free brake fluid, your line is flushed. Remove your hose, Retighten the bleed nipple, give everything a wipe with a damp cloth, and replace your bleed nipple cover. Now you're ready to move to the next wheel.
Alright, now one thing you want to check in between each wheel, after you bleed each wheel, you want to check your reservoir and make sure that you're not running it dry. So top it off after every wheel that you bleed, and just make sure that you've got enough fluid in there so that you don't pull any air into your brake lines.
With your reservoir refilled, repeat the same process on the driver's side rear brakes. Now, on an older car without an ABS module, you usually bleed the rear first. But if your car is newer and has ABS, you may have to bleed your front brakes first depending on the location of your ABS module. Check your service manual for your vehicle's specific bleeding order.
Alright, now we've got our rear drum brakes bled and we're now moving towards the front. We're starting with the front passenger side. Now, the rear had drum brakes, the front has disc brakes. It's exactly the same process though. There's a little bleeder valve here on the front caliper. And we're just going to be pulling the fresh brake fluid through so that we flush out the old brake fluid. Now, it's important that you check your reservoir every so often. Ayaw mong matuyuan yan, ayaw mong humilot ng hangin papasok ng mga brake lines mo. You don't want air in your brake lines because that's what gives you that spongy feeling that I was talking about. So, I showed you how to use a vacuum brake bleeder, but what if you don't have one of those? Simple lang naman. We can use a manual method. I'll show you guys how to make a simple manual bleeding tool. You're going to need a plastic bottle and a length of rubber hose. Let me show you how. Alright, now all we're going to do is we're going to drill a little hole on there the same size as our plastic tubing or our rubber tubing. Let's check that out for size. Perfect. And we're going to drill another small little hole right beside it just to relieve some of the pressure that will build up inside the bottle. Alright, you're going to end up with something that looks like this, a hole big enough for your rubber hose and a smaller pressure relief. Feed that hose through. Make sure your hose reaches all the way down to the bottom of the bottle. And once you've got that ready, it's time to head out to the car. This is our manual bleed setup. I've got a plastic bottle, a length of clear plastic hose or rubber hose, and that hose goes all the way down to the bottom of the bottle. Now I've filled half the bottle with brake fluid, and I'm going to attach this end to the bleed valve. I'm going to crack open the bleed valve, step into the car, and pump the brakes a few times. Now the old fluid will be pushed through into this bottle, but every time I let go of the brakes, since the bleed valve is actually left open, it's actually going to suck up a little bit of this brake fluid. Now you want to make sure that you have the end of this hose in the brake fluid so that you don't suck up any air into your brake lines. So we'll get it hooked up and I'll show you how it works. Alright, so I'm fitting my wrench through there and getting my rubber hose fitted over the nipple. Nice tight fit. This will be better if the hose is positioned this way, where you have a little bit of an arc. That way air bubbles get trapped up to the top. If ever any air bubbles come out, you don't suck them back into the system. So I'm going to crack this open. There we go. And I'm going to step into the car and pump the brakes. At this point, I can see that I have some clear brake fluid passing through my tube. So this is the clean brake fluid already. All the old stuff has been flushed down. As you can see, it's here at the bottom of the bottle. And at this point, I'm just gonna close off this bleed nipple. And this passenger side front brake is done.
Now repeat the process on your driver's side front brakes, pumping the pedal until you see clear bubble-free fluid passing through your clear tube and filling your catch bottle. Once you see that, you're done.
Alright, all 4 brake lines have been flushed. We've got clean brake fluid flowing through all of that. We've removed any air that might have been trapped in our brake lines. And now we're just going to top off our reservoir one last time. Nakikita naman natin yung maximum level. Siguraduhin natin saktong-sakto lang. Right up at max. And we are done. Alright, we are done, and I have to say my brakes have not felt this good in quite a few years. Now, it is hard, sweaty work. I don't blame you if you would prefer to have a mechanic do this work for you, but for those of you who like to do your own home maintenance, I salute you, and remember, always choose only the very best fluids when it comes to your car. Dito na tayo kung saan may tiwala tayo. I hope you guys learned something new right here on The Man Cave.